had a job before this, but everyone has one failed job, right? So
hmm
didn't work in recruitment first, moved into recruitment, and did really well off the bat. And the company I worked for was opening up a business in the US, and I had always wanted to live in America, in New York in particular. So I put my hand up.
You're listening to CyberSisters. I'm Blair.
I'm Cheila.
And I'm Roha.
Think of this as your favourite catch up with the girls, except we're breaking down cyber.
Having the conversations that the industry isn't always ready for.
We all know cyber pays well, but at what cost?
Whether you're joining the cyber industry or simply levelling up, we've got you.
This is your space. Welcome in.
Welcome back to the CyberSisters podcast. Guys, it is series 2. Can you believe this? Season 2. I can't. We've upgraded venue, location. We've also upgraded our guests a little bit for you. And we've got some amazing topics to be discussing. Things that are going to be helping you either get into the cyber industry or upgrade yourself within the cyber industry. Today, we've got an amazing guest. She is someone that is going to help you, give you all the tips that you need in getting into the industry.
Yep.
She runs a company called LT Harper Recruitment. So all the right hotspots in terms of what you need to know. So today we introduce to you Kunjal. Hello, Kunjal.
Hello.
Welcome to the CyberSisters podcast.
Thank you. It's brilliant being here. Thank you.
No, thank you for coming. The viewers want to get to know you, Kunjal. Tell us a bit more about your journey, where you've come from, and how you've got here today.
Sure. So I have been a tech recruiter for over 20 years. So I started working for a really big UK tech recruitment company here in the UK. Had a job before this, but everyone has one failed job, right? So didn't work in recruitment first, moved into recruitment, and did really well off the bat. And the company I worked for was opening up a business in the US, and I had always wanted to live in America, in New York in particular. So I put my hand up to see if I could go and help them do that. So I went in 2006 with the intention of spending at least a couple of years there, and I'd see how things went, and ended up being there for 10 years, which was both personally and professionally like the time of my life. It was incredible. I learned so much about recruitment, about just living abroad, and yeah, it was a fantastic experience.
Love that.
So it was 5 of us who went over, and in that 10 years I was there, we took that from 5 of us to about 450 across like 9 different offices across the US. And then I moved back in 2016, and it was time to look for a job. And I'd only really ever done recruitment apart from this other job that I knew I was no good at, which was IT, funnily enough. And I started interviewing with loads and loads and loads of recruitment companies. I mean, I probably interviewed with 40 different companies.
Wow.
And simultaneously, I was kind of catching up with people I knew from the industry. And I was like, look, here's my situation. I've been a recruiter, I've managed teams. Here's what I want to do. Here's my vision. And everyone kept saying to me, why don't you do it on your own? And I was like, I just don't want to. It's not, I don't want to set up a business. It's not what I want to do. And eventually, one of the people I ended up getting coffee was with the guy who used to be my boss just before I moved to America, Justin. And he said the same thing to me. He was like, why don't you do it on your own? And I was so fed up with people saying that. I said, why don't you do it on your own? And then we both suddenly went, hang on, should we do it together?
The best ideas.
Yeah. And then it just all happened quite quickly from there, actually. So we were, looking at, what market we wanted to specialize in. And literally within that same day, we'd narrowed it down to either data or cybersecurity. And this
What was that decision like? Is it because cyber was a hotspot at the time?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there was we knew that it was on the up. So we could kind of capitalize on that, which was an exciting time to, be in the industry. And this is kind of a really big part of the story, actually. So we talked about in the day data or cyber, and that evening I went home and I was like really excited and thought, right, we'll make a decision. And I put on Netflix and I put on Mr. Robot, and I was like, yeah, let's do cyber. This is really interesting. So yeah, that was quite a big factor. But just going back a little step actually on something important that I missed, which is when I was interviewing with all those companies, one of the things that I was asking everybody was, what are you doing as a business about diversity, equity, and inclusion in the industry that you recruit into? And they were all tech recruitment companies. And the genesis of my question was, at that point, I think I had about 15 years tech recruitment experience in 2 different continents. And I was like, the conversation hasn't changed. Like, I've been and worked in America, and before I went, people were saying there aren't enough women in tech.
Yeah.
While I was there, people are saying there aren't enough women in tech. I'm back, people are still saying that. And I was like, well, why is nobody doing anything?
Yeah.
And not to say nobody was doing anything, but I just feel strongly that as a recruiter, you're in a really good position to actually be impactful about, what you can do. And I just found that the companies I was interviewing with were giving me stock answers and just paying lip service. There wasn't really any action. So it was really important to me that, I wanted to work somewhere I could do that. And I realized that the only way I'd be able to really feel like I was doing something about it was to do it on my own. So despite not wanting to set up a business, I did it so that I could have the freedom to actually do something about it.
And what has your experience been in the recruitment space of actually bringing in women into the industry? How has that sort of gone for you?
Yeah, great question. So I think that the cyber industry, and I would say probably the tech industry as a whole, does have a bit of a tendency to just latch on to the negative, right? Because it makes headlines and it's really, it's more interesting to read, right? I'm not suggesting for a second that there isn't still lots of work to be done on having more women in the cyber industry, but I actually think it's really important to look at how much progress has been made. I think there are some really, really incredible cyber leaders who are women.
Absolutely.
And I think and what you guys do is exactly this, but I think it's really important that as people in the industry that we're showcasing those people, highlighting the work that they do and talking about that, because I think, that's where people become visible and, people thinking about coming into the industry see people like them and they're more likely to be attracted to the industry. So yes, there's loads of work to be done, right? We're nowhere near where we should be, but we have made quite a lot of progress.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think even for me in the last sort of 10 years, watching the industry change and seeing more people that look like me, other women, it's just been amazing to see.
Yeah.
And you saw me at the beginning of my career,
yeah.
where I was a baby. I didn't even know what I was doing. And to see where it was then and where it is now has been absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
I think as well, like, there's a conversation that I think a lot more people are having now as well. We've talked about the gender side of cybersecurity. There's another conversation, another layer that's been added to that, which is the age side of cybersecurity.
Yeah.
And I guess my question is, we are seeing in the news with Jaguar Land Rover, with M&S, with all of these, with a recent nursery that got hacked as well. All of the people who are like the hackers, they're like teenagers. They're 17, 18, 19 years old.
Yeah.
And when we look at the average age of a cyber professional, we're looking at 45 to 49 years old.
Yeah.
Are you seeing those conversations where we need to bring more young talent into the industry?
Unfortunately, no, is the truth. And it's a really good point. I read a stat last week, which was, I won't remember the numbers exactly, but this is, again, looking at it positively from a diversity lens, the percentage of women in the industry who are over, I think it was 39, is something like 15 or 16%. But that diversity actually improves with younger people. So at the age range, something like between 24 and 35 or something like that, it's about a quarter of the workforce is women, right? So let's start with that as a positive, right? There are more women choosing this industry as a profession, right? However, your point is, a really, really important one, that ultimately the job of the cyber industry is to fend off the attackers. And if the attackers aren't like the people who are defending, then it's going to be really, really difficult to be in the mind of that person, right?
100%.
So but this is part of a bigger conversation around what are the barriers to entry in cyber, right? I think there's a lot of discussion around, do you need a degree? Do you, need to have even done A levels, right?
Yeah.
Is there a different route into the industry? Apprenticeships, all of those types
Yeah.
of things are brilliant, right? But actually, I think, a big part of the problem right now is, given where the economy is, where, there's just so much volatility in the job market as a whole, and the cyber industry is really impacted by that. For the first time since I set up LT Hub, where I feel like it's, the most volatile it's been, it's becoming even more difficult for young people to enter the job market. People are not willing at the moment to give people a chance to come and work in the industry and gain practical experience.
But that kind of undermines the whole point of cybersecurity, in my opinion, because you're protecting your organization. You can only do that when you're bringing in people who understand what it's like to be in the psyche of a criminal or a hacker. And I just think the age disparity is getting bigger, and we're hearing more and more about it. And it's like, if we're not bringing these young, talented, technical people into the good side of cybersecurity, it's inevitable they're going to go down the criminal side, because they're going to make money from it. Yeah, and people are going to exploit that. And it's just, I feel like it's a recent conversation we've started having quite a bit, but we're just not seeing organizations, because the amount of women, it's not even just women, young people we speak to that want to get into the industry.
Yeah.
And then it's like that chicken and egg situation where it's like, you need experience to get in, but how do you get experience if you can't get in?
Yeah, it's a massive frustration. And I think the onus has been just too much on the individual about, go and do this course and spend all this money and all this time, educating yourself and getting all these qualifications in cyber, and you're guaranteed a job. That's just a fallacy. And I think it's really important that we're, clearer with people that it's not a walk in the park to get a job in cyber. But more importantly, I think we just need to change who we're talking to, right? Your point is exactly right. I think, not just to get into the psyche of hackers, but also there's a really big problem in the industry with burnout, right?
Oh, absolutely.
People with lots of experience are leaving the industry, and if we don't replenish those skills by bringing in new people, we're just making a bigger problem than we already have. So I think it's one that really needs attention.
I agree.
If you've been wanting to get into cybersecurity and you have no idea where to start, check out our socials, because we are doing free workshops on a monthly basis to help you find your career in cybersecurity.
I want to stay on this topic of burnout, because I think we've spent a lot of time making the industry sexy and fun and interesting. And it's true. It is fun and it's sexy, and it's something, you learn something new every day in cybersecurity. And there's a lot of opportunity. I know right now is a bit of a drought, but there's a lot of opportunity for growth once you get in. However, in my experience in the last, I'd say 2 years, that burnout topic for me has hit me hard. I'm working long hours, I'm tired. And I just want to know, is that something you're seeing from a lot of people in the industry? And what would your advice be to calm it down?
Yeah, good question. I wish I knew the answer to the calming it down bit, but I can certainly give a little bit
It's a selfish question.
I can definitely give a bit of context around it, maybe, as to why people are feeling that. And this is just observationally from people I talk to, in the job market. I think what's happening, and this does tie in with the topic of, why companies are a bit more reluctant to bring in, entry-level talent into their businesses. The reality is that businesses aren't flush with cash at the moment, right? So they've got a limited amount of money to spend on resource and bringing people into their teams. So when they're hiring, they're typically going for people who already have the skills that they need to fix the problem that they have currently, right? There's not a huge amount of thought going into protecting for tomorrow, right? It is about the immediate need, right? But what's also happening is, let's just say a CISO gets one headcount approved, but they've got, a multitude of issues on their team. Quite often they'll come to us as recruiters and say, I'm hiring for someone to do this, and this. Now, historically, that's at least two different people's
Yeah.
jobs, right? But they're having to bring two jobs together to get the job done. And so people who are bored and frustrated in the job that they've been trying to leave for 2, 3, 4, 5 years are thinking, this is going to be a challenge. It will be a change. I'll go and take this job. I know it's a big job. I know it's a challenge, but I'm up for a challenge because I'm really bored where I am right
Yes.
now. I'm
Yes.
happy. I'm not doing badly. I'm just bored. I need a change, right?
Mm.
So then they go into these jobs where they're doing two people's jobs. Inevitably, they're going to end up being burnt out. And I
100%.
don't know that there is an immediate solution for that. I think that's just the reality of the times that we're in. But I suppose as individuals, we just need to find the things that kind of give us those pillars of strength, if you like, to, fill our cups, if you like.
Oh, definitely. And I think it's also that transparency
Yeah.
as well with your line manager. So anyone watching that is in that situation now, it's a case of honestly going to your management and saying, I'm burnt out, I'm tired, I've got a lot on my plate. Here's the evidence. This is how much hours I'm working. And let's do something about it together.
Yeah.
So going back, like we've gone straight into kind of like this very interesting conversation about the cyber industry and how it's changing. But I want to take a step back and learn more about you.
Sure.
Okay. So if there was a documentary about your life,
Mm.
what would the title be?
Oh my God.
Ooh.
I did not prepare for this.
Oh, sorry.
Just give it a try.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I think.
Just give it a try.
Yeah,
I like
think
that.
so.
Is that from childhood?
Yeah. I would
Yeah?
say so. Yeah.
You've always done something new or not been afraid to try something new?
Generally not been afraid to try something new. Yeah, I would say that's probably it. I'm trying to think of examples, and the weirdest one comes to mind, but ever since I was a kid, I'd always just change my hair and I'd like dye it different colours. And I had some terrible haircuts.
trust
but
me, I
ever
can
since
relate.
I
I
was a
can relate.
kid, I've just always
Tell us, what was the one color that you're like, I regret that?
I'm blonde.
Oh,
I'm not a blonde, am I?
that is like me.
Yeah.
We were having this conversation.
Yesterday.
It's a terrible idea.
Now this is my natural hair color, and my sister was looking at my pictures when I went blonde, and she literally said to me, "Did you think you look nice
Yeah.
there?" And I'm like,
Yeah.
"Well, not now."
Yeah.
Sisters are the best for that.
Yeah, but like that was me too, and I feel like you have to go on this whole journey to find yourself. That's the way I found it.
Yeah.
I just thought blonde wasn't me, and it was like, who am I trying to be? Why am I
Yeah.
not being me?
Yeah.
And my color is this, and
Yeah.
why am I not accepting that? But yeah, okay, I relate with the blonde because looking back, it's like, oh my god, what was I thinking?
But yeah, I suppose just give it a try. Like the whole experience of moving abroad. And I'm really, really close with my family, so it was a big deal. It wasn't, like I'm escaping something. I was definitely moving towards something.
Bigger.
Even at school, I just wanted to try. I was the kid who wanted to do every subject for A levels. Like I couldn't choose, and they were like a real variety. Like I wanted to do textiles, and I wanted to do Latin, and I wanted to do history. I wanted to do them all. So yeah,
Love
just
that.
give everything a try.
I was the complete opposite, by the way. I was like, give me less. I'm tired. I'm already tired, and I haven't even started working yet.
So we were talking about like burnout in the cyber industry, and I can imagine like as someone who's running your own company, you're a co-founder, and we can relate to that. It's hectic, it's tiring. There's always something. What fills your cup?
I love this question. Well, actually, going back to what you'd said about the title of my what was it, documentary?
Yeah, just give it a try.
Yeah, it would be. I've probably gone through different seasons in my life of things that fill my cup. So, at points it's been exercise. It's not at the moment, to be honest. I've always been quite a creative person. I love making things. So, since I was very young, when I was at school, I sewed like all of the costumes for
Oh yeah.
all the school plays, and
Did you?
I did, yeah. And I've just gone back to sewing in
I
the
love
last couple of
that.
months, yeah. And I just love it, and it gives me a completely different way to use my brain,
love
and I make time to do it every week, even if it's half an hour. And yeah,
That's
I love it.
amazing. What have you
Absolutely.
sewn then? Like, what is something you're really
Recently, I've only just picked it
Okay,
back up in
fine,
the last couple of months.
fine.
So I'm making a shirt.
Nice.
But yeah, when I was younger, I made like ball gowns and children's clothes and
amazing.
all sorts of things.
That's
So
so
Next year, we
cool.
know who to go to for a Halloween costume.
Oh,
I love
exactly.
Halloween costumes. That is my specialty.
Okay.
I love
All
Halloween
right.
costumes. Yeah.
CyberSisters Halloween costume
Yeah.
coming your
Anyway.
way.
Please.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
really
no,
cool.
that is really cool. I've got an interesting one that we get asked all the time,
Mhm.
like nonstop. So, how do I get into the industry? Like, what do I need to do? What do I need to think
Without
about?
any experience.
Without any experience, I didn't study at university. I didn't even go to university.
Mhm.
Where do I start?
I get asked this question a lot as well. I really wish there was a simple answer. And I think if we were having this conversation 3 years ago, the answer would have been a bit simpler, right? In that if you are doing anything to set yourself out, apart from the crowd, you'll get a shot, right? So
Mm.
things like write a blog, right? Get
Mhm.
a lab and play around with it and document what you're learning, right? A CV is not really going to get you the job because you
No.
won't have much to put on
No.
there, right?
Yeah.
But if you've got something that
Else to
shows
do
that
it.
you're genuinely passionate, right? Because to your point, we have made the industry to some degree sexy, right? So young people think that looks cool. And we've kind of said to people, you'll definitely get a job and you'll definitely get
Yeah.
paid really well. So all these people are like, well, when's it going to happen? So, I think a lot of people are now interested in the industry, but they're not really doing enough to show that
interest.
genuine passion and interest. When I talk to hiring managers, slightly different in the last couple of years where it has been a lot more about I need people with experience. But when people have historically said, I'll consider somebody who, is newer to
Yeah.
the industry, that passion and demonstrating passion is the thing, right? So I'm always reluctant to say to people, go and, pay to get certificates. It's not going to work against you. If you want to do it, absolutely do it. But it's not cheap, right? So do the study towards the certificate and show what you've done in that study, right? Document your learning,
Demonstrate it.
all of that type of
Yeah.
stuff. Networking is super important.
I think people don't realize how many like free cybersecurity events take place.
Loads.
There's loads. And speaking to people face to face makes the biggest difference.
Yes, it really does. And I've got a really nice story actually. So Roy, the same guy who introduced
Yeah.
us, a lady that he employed, I met her because I can't remember who introduced me to her, and I spoke to her on the phone and I said to her, oh, look, I'm going to this free cyber networking event. Why don't you come along? You sound really interested in working in cyber. I met her and I thought, she's incredible. I think she'd studied maybe history. I can't remember now, but it was completely unrelated, but just came across really, really well, really
Yeah.
passionate.
Yeah.
And I said to her, I was like, you need to speak to this woman. She's incredible. And he spoke to her and he was like, you're right. And I think she still works with him, but
Wow.
she's had a number of promotions in the time that he's been there. And not just promotions as in gone up the scale. She's moved around from like governance, risk and compliance to security architecture.
Yeah.
And she's just built this career through being present at events and showing up and having good conversations and demonstrating that, look, here, I really want to work in this industry. I'm here. I'm making an effort.
Yeah. That's really interesting because I feel like when people reach out to us and ask us how can they get into the industry, what do they need to do? I feel like people are looking for shortcuts
Yeah.
and they're looking for quick fixes. What
Yeah.
quick thing do I need to do to get that interview?
Yeah.
And I think the answer here is there is no quick way into the industry. You have to work for it.
Yeah.
Like you've got to work for anything. I think as
Absolutely.
seasoned professionals, they have to work to get a job in the industry.
Yeah.
I think when you're starting off and you're so new,
Yeah.
it's harder, but it's doable. And I
Yeah.
think it's that's like people think it's either like very, very easy or it's impossible.
Yeah.
But there is that middle ground where if you work for it and you speak to the right people
Yeah.
and you show up, there's an opportunity for anyone in any industry
Yeah.
at that point.
Yeah. And I think you touched on a really important point, which is it's not going to be easy,
No.
right? But what's easy?
Yeah.
What's easy?
Nothing is
Nothing
easy.
good comes
Yeah,
easy.
Yeah.
exactly. And I think you've got to be in it for the long haul, especially at the moment. And you may or may not have a plan B. It's not really that important if you've got a plan B or not. The important thing is that when you're on the job hunt, you are fully on the job hunt and you are showing your best self every single time. I know it gets exhausting, but for the person on the receiving end, that's the first time they've ever met you, first
Yeah.
time they've engaged with you. So they've got to feel like this is the person that I want on my team. They're worth
100%.
investing in.
Yeah. There's another question which it goes into like the understanding the industry for women. But before we get into that, I remember recently I was putting up some stories on our Instagram and there was quite a few questions that came through because we told them we were going to be interviewing a recruiter. One of them was around once you've submitted an application, we hear a lot about message the recruiter. Is that still would you say that's like
Do you
good
like
advice?
that? Yeah. I feel like every recruiter in the world is going to hate me, but yes, absolutely. Right.
Okay.
We get so many applications, so many. That is part of standing out, right? Do I find it annoying sometimes? Yeah. But does that person end up standing out? Yes. Right.
Okay.
Now, if you've got a good CV or a good story even to tell me, and you've reached out to me, I'm probably going to be more likely to respond to you, right? If you don't have a compelling story and you're hounding me, you're probably going to fall to the bottom of the list. But yeah, the two go hand in hand, right? If you are credible for whatever reason it is, there's something that demonstrates that you're genuinely passionate about the industry and you can articulate that and you can articulate it to me really quickly to get my attention, you will get my attention.
Okay.
Okay, I like that. Question. Do you pick up when someone uses AI on their CV straight away?
I wish I could say confidently yes, but I suppose I don't know is the truth, right?
Everyone's using ChatGPT now.
Yeah.
I can notice it sometimes.
Sometimes I can definitely notice it in some cases, but inevitably there will be cases where I've
Yeah.
missed it, right?
Mm.
Yeah, if I think about my own use of it, and I'm not a huge user of it, I find it really useful to give structure to things, but I like to write things myself because it's in my words
Yes.
and my tone. Maybe if I used it more, that would probably get better, but you can tell tonally more than you can,
Yeah.
anything else. But I
Yeah.
think it's great for like formatting stuff and just
Yes.
organizing your thoughts, organizing how you present information. I think, yeah, it's great for that kind of thing.
Yeah. So we've talked a lot about the industry being quite difficult. It's very volatile. There's a lot happening, a lot changing. Have you seen that impacting women in the industry, or what are the changes that are impacting women, not in the best way, or even in a good way? Actually, if we're trying to keep it positive.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And the first thing comes to mind, I was actually on a panel a couple of weeks ago and a similar question came up. And the thing that was, there was a real strong feeling around it was do not remove flexibility, right? And that isn't a gendered thing. It is about, it's about allowing people to have a fuller life, especially at a time when they are probably doubling down on their work efforts because
Yes.
there's so much work to be done. And there is a little bit of a threat of what if there are redundancies looming? I don't want to be that person who's seen to not, be delivering. But yeah, flexibility, we know that from COVID, that it really opened up parts of the job market that were more difficult for women to,
Yeah.
take part in, especially in cyber, right?
Mhm.
It's no secret that still women, for the most part, they are, the caregivers, the main caregivers for their family. And I think when we're talking about women who are mid to senior, something that's quite often forgotten is they're not just caregivers for their children, they're probably caregivers for their elderly parent as well, right?
Absolutely.
That's a lot on one person's plate. So having to have a commute and, big cities are becoming more expensive. So people are moving
It's
further away,
expensive.
right?
Yeah.
Travel becomes more expensive. It takes more time to get into work.
Yeah.
So let's remove some of those boundaries that
Yeah.
make it more difficult for anyone to do all of the things they need to. But yes,
Yeah.
for women in particular who might have, you know, other responsibilities on top of work
Yeah.
and travel as well.
Yeah, and that really resonates because I've been looking at jobs and I remember having this conversation quite recently and they were like, oh, we're very inclusive, we support everyone, but you have to be in the office 5 days a week. There is no negotiation. And for me, it was instantly like, well,
How inclusive
how
are you?
inclusive is that?
Yeah.
Because I can't and not because I don't want to, I can't because I have other responsibilities. And when I feel like when companies do that, when they're very rigid, For me, and I might be completely wrong and people might completely disagree with me, but for me that's a red flag.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to work for a company that cannot be flexible in today's day and age after everything we've been through.
Yeah.
After COVID, you're
Yeah.
telling me I can't be flexible.
Yeah.
And that's a huge put off for me.
It
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And, you know, speaking truthfully, it is for recruiters as well, right? If
Yeah.
a client comes to us and mandates X number of days in an office, their job is less attractive to us to work and
Yeah.
put candidates forward to
Yeah.
than one where there is more flexibility, because that's what people want, right? They
Yeah.
want flexibility.
And we should be allowed that, I think, in like again today's day and age. There was another question that came up on our Instagram for you, and it was, would hiring companies or hiring managers be put off from hiring people with health conditions?
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, so my gut reaction is no. You know, how would they know? Why would we need to tell them? You know, that is a
So that's
conversation.
something you wouldn't recommend someone with health issues bringing it up.
It's a really tricky one, right? I think ultimately, right, these things come down to trust and transparency, right?
Mhm.
I think you should be comfortable, well, you should feel comfortable enough that you can share anything that you need to with your employer. And you'd like to believe that the employer is not going to discriminate against you, right? I can't honestly say that that is the reality, right? I have seen firsthand where somebody who was returning to work after having cancer had a really, really negative experience in the job market, first of all.
What?
And then once they went back to work as well. On the flip side,
Okay.
I have also seen um I don't know if this is appropriate, so feel free to edit if it's not. But a really lovely story of a hiring manager who had worked with a woman when she was earlier in her career, really, really rated her, thought she was fantastic. He moved on to another company and he looked to hire her again. And she interviewed and they offered her the job, and she found out she was pregnant before she'd accepted it. And
Okay.
she said to him, she was like, "Look, I have to tell you I'm pregnant." And he just said, "I'm not going to tell anyone if you don't tell anyone. Join the team. You'll be on maternity leave. It's not a big deal."
Oh, I
So
like that.
I guess the answer to your question is it depends on who's on the receiving end, right?
But you never
You've got
really know, though.
no idea of knowing how that
Yeah.
person's going to respond. But I suppose if they respond negatively,
Do
then
you,
what
do
do you
you
answer?
really, yeah, do you
Yeah.
really want to work there?
Yeah.
Because this is also like an interesting point you've made about women who find out they're pregnant or they're pregnant during interviews, and whether they should say anything, and what does that make them look like, and how do other people then perceive you.
Mm.
And that is like, because I remember there was a friend of mine who was pregnant whilst she was interviewing, and she got like really, really, really good feedback.
Mm.
And then as soon as she told them that she was pregnant, it just went radio silent.
yeah.
Like just they didn't say anything.
Yeah.
So it's, the truth is like some people will care about you,
Yeah.
but you will never truly know.
Yeah.
And like you said, if they do that, then you know that's not a company you want to work for anyway, or
Yeah.
they're not people you want to work with.
Yeah.
But that's an interesting point, I think.
No,
I
there's
do
so
think,
much on that
and
one.
look, obviously, you know, we're talking about it from the individual's perspective, which is the right thing to do, right? I do sometimes think in these conversations, you know, what is forgotten is the employer, right? And I think quite often when we talk about the employer, we're always thinking about big companies who've got, you know, lots of processes, policies, they've got an army of staff that can pick up work and all of these things, right? Some companies are smaller employers, and we're one of them, right? We've never been in that type of situation, but I can imagine being in, you know, as a smaller business, hiring somebody that you're then going to be paying. You don't really get the chance to hire that many people, but for smaller businesses, that can be really, really impactful. So I think it's important to remember it isn't always going to be a personal
Yeah.
attack if it doesn't work out, right? There's got to be a bit of nuance in that kind of understanding of, why can't they employ me knowing that I'm going to be off having a baby in a year, right? That's just the reality, right? That small businesses at the moment are really having to think about these things. So yeah, it isn't cut and dry. That it's too easy to point the blame sometimes to say it was a bad employee or a bad employer. I think everyone's having to dance the dance at the minute.
No.
Absolutely, especially with the situation we've
Yeah.
got going on in the
Yeah.
world. Two more. So, as much as we're talking about cyber, I want to know about recruitment as well, because that's often seen as a men's club, the guys' club, the lads. How's it been for you in recruitment as a woman?
Yeah, it probably has been historically a bit of a men's club. And the truth is, when I first started working in recruitment, I just didn't think about it. It never really crossed my mind. And actually reflecting, the business I joined wasn't really that male dominated. It was like, I don't know if it was 50-50, but it must have been, because I think when I joined, I was the only person that wasn't in a relationship with somebody in the office. So it must have been about 50-50 if they were all heterosexual. So, um, but having said that, I think what ended up happening in recruitment, like in a lot of industries, is women would fall out of the industry, right? And they'd leave because, the hours are long. Like with many jobs, the hours are long. There's a lot of pressure. The income is variable. So I would have conversations with women as I was kind of moving up the ladder, and they would say, I don't think I'll stay here when I decide to have a family because it's not sustainable, which um, happened a lot. I think, a lot of women did leave before they reached seniority. But I think the industry's changed a lot, actually. I've got a really small lens at the moment at my business. I hear about what other businesses are doing, but I kind of need to focus and worry about what I can do, not what other people are doing. I like to, we've got men and women who have got children working for us. And it's actually a great question, in that one of the things we talked about when we first set the business up was we don't want to create an environment and replicate what the image of recruitment is. I don't enjoy working in that kind of environment. Neither does Justin, my business partner. So let's create what we want to work in. And we talk a lot about it, and it's become a bit of a cliche phase in our business, but let's be grown up about it, and let's hire grown-ups and let's behave like grown-ups. And that doesn't mean an age thing.
Yes.
That is just about
Behaviour.
an approach. We're not a business where if you want to come and have drinks every Thursday night and that's what your expectation is. We're not that, right? But we've hired people who are young, who are old, who don't drink, who choose not to go out partying or whatever. So I think the industry as a whole has changed to accommodate both. I think you can, if that's what you want, then there are still businesses where you can still go and do that as well.
I love that.
Yeah.
And for people that want to work for you, tell us your company, where they can find you, all of that good stuff.
Yep. So the two companies are on. One is LT Harper, which is a cybersecurity recruitment company. And the other was one that we acquired about a year ago, which is APT, which is a legal technology recruitment company. Falls under the umbrella of LT Harper now. But you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm Kunjal Tanna.
Thank you. And last but not least, I think one that everyone wants to know if they're watching this and they want to get into cyber: what makes me stand out? What on my CV and my interview do I need to do to get that job?
So on your CV, formatting, it sounds so simple, but make sure it's really, really clear to see what your achievements are. So not walls and walls of text, bullet points, and highlight key achievements. Where you can, talk about, ideally in the cyber industry, but if it's not in cyber, in a parallel industry, where have you made money for the company? Where have you saved money for the company? Where have you made and saved time for the company? Where have you brought about innovation? And talk about, the results, not the process, not what you've done, but the results of what the work is that you've done, right? In an interview, kind of similar, right? Talk in a results manner, right? Here's what changed, here's what impact I had. That's what people want to hear about. And then the other thing is, be yourself in an interview, right? Don't pretend to be something that you're not. We've all been guilty of it. I've definitely done it when I was younger, where I've tried to be the person I thought that they wanted to hire. But be yourself, because that's who they will be hiring, and that's who they want to know you, and they will hire you because you are 100% yourself, right? So I think that's really important in an interview.
Be authentic.
Yes.
Well, honestly, Kunjal, it has been such a pleasure to have you on our podcast. I feel like I've learned a lot and I am in the industry. But just everything you've spoken about, I think it's brought a lot of context to what we're seeing in the industry as well. And I think people who are watching who want to come into cybersecurity or break into tech will also feel like they've learned quite a bit from this podcast. So I appreciate you coming all the way. It's been amazing to speak to you and see you in person. And yeah, I would love to keep in touch, but thank you so much for being on our podcast.
Thank you. I've really, really enjoyed it. Loved it.
Likewise.